Welcome to the 2016 season of IPFW Men's Volleyball Weekly Television Program. I'm your host, Jordan Armstrong, and this year's show will be renamed VolleyDons Weekly. On this week's show, we will be talking to head coach Ryan Perrotte, as well as assistant coach J.W. Kieckhefer. We will be discussing the beginning of the season, which opened up Friday night inside the Gate Center on Arnie Ball Court with a 3-0 sweep of Aldous and Broadus, and then the season continued Saturday against number 13 Stanford Cardinal, which the VolleyDons lost in 4 sets. Stay tuned for more on VolleyDons Weekly. Welcome to VolleyDons Weekly. I'm your host, Jordan Armstrong, and this show is starring Ryan Perrotte. This week's sponsors include Alco, Active Ankle, ASICS, Glenbrook Dodge, and Hyatt Place. How's it going, Coach?
Well, hello, Mr. Gumble. How do you like your new position?
Feeling it out still. Not too bad so far.
You're doing a great job.
How about you? That question really should be posed to you. How does it feel being the big guy on campus with the men's volleyball world?
A lot of people have asked me that question, actually, since, I don't know, May, maybe, the spring. And, of course, this past weekend as we kicked off our season at home. I feel the same that I've always felt. And that is joyful, thankful, and I think I've settled into the position okay.
Well, I definitely think settling into the position is important. After all, you've been a 4-year player here at IPFW, and after 12 years of being the assistant coach, you were hired back in May to take over for the only coach men's volleyball has ever known here, Coach Arnie Ball. Talk a little bit about how following in his footsteps and everything that he has done for you and the lessons you've learned has kind of paid off in the first couple months of the season.
Well, I was very fortunate for so long to study under such a legendary coach as Coach Ball, who's, by the way, watching the show in Florida. His retirement home is now in Florida, so I'm very jealous as it's pouring snow outside out here. And it's what, -10? It feels like -10?
Much better than the weather we have here.
I'm jealous of him. But I was very lucky to study under him, and I think that's part of the reason why the transition for me, Jordan, has been so seamless and so, in my eyes, effortless. I learned a lot under his tutelage on how to handle certain situations. Obviously, I'm still learning and growing as a coach and trying to figure out player management and instruction and that kind of thing. But the 2 greatest lessons I think I learned from Coach Ball is, number 2, to come to work every day. That's just crucial and vital. And you got to give your very best effort. But number 1 is about servanthood. And this position that I'm in as the head coach, it's all about serving, whether it's serving the players, serving this institution, or serving the community. And those are the 2 things that I've taken away, along with other things, to try and get me into the position that I'm at now and hopefully carry it into the future.
So in talking about all that, the VolleyDons kicked off their 2016 season on Friday night inside of the Gate Center facing Aldous and Broadus. How was that first match for you and the team?
Well, I knew, as I told you guys in the locker room before the match, that it was going to be an ugly opening set. And it was for us, as we had 11 service errors. I thought we were very, very nervous playing the game. And it's one thing to practice on a regular basis in a closed environment, a confined environment, without people, your friends or family there to watch. But we were a very, very nervous volleyball team. I wasn't nervous at all. People said, well, how'd you handle your nerves? I wasn't. To me, it's just another volleyball match. I was just in a different position as a head coach. And I thought our team responded better incrementally as the match went along. Not that the play was outstanding or clean on both sides. Aldous and Broadus is a new volleyball program in West Virginia. They're a young volleyball team, so a lot of unorthodox play, if you will. But I thought our guys handled it pretty good for the most part, considering it was their very first home match in front of 1,000 people.
I would definitely agree with that from my perspective. I think the stats kind of speak for themselves, like you alluded to. A little bit of difficulty with nerves and a lot of service errors in the match, but then we were still able to hit at such a high efficiency. So with that, was being able to be successful offensively a good thing to see, even though we weren't as successful as we would have wanted to be from the service line?
I think anytime teams miss a lot of serves, it's either because you're tired or you're nervous. And that was apparent for us on Friday night. But you got to be able to handle the moment. It's like Alabama beating Clemson last night in football. Alabama was able to handle the moment better than Clemson. They'd been there before, and I think that helps. And as much as we've had, 3 seniors return and get significant playing time over the weekend, we still incorporate that with a young group. So you're still inexperienced, trying to work out the kinks, trying to get in rhythm, and it took us a while Friday night to do so.
So then when you talk about handling the moment, let's transition now to Saturday's match against number 13 Stanford Cardinal out of the MPSF. How do you think the team responded to playing a team ranked inside the AVCA top 15 on their home court at such an early stage in the season?
Much better than I anticipated. I really believed that we were going to be nervous again. And I really thought our nerves would be worse playing the number 13 team, Stanford, on Arnie Ball court. But the guys responded very, very well in terms of their energy level, in terms of their passion, and how they displayed themselves on the volleyball court, and our competitiveness. I thought our competitiveness was a lot better Saturday as opposed to Friday night, given the stage of playing a ranked team, especially a team from California. I thought our guys prepared themselves very well after Friday, coming into the gym Saturday for our serve and practice session to really refine some of the things that was deficient. Number one was serving. And as soon as we went around with our first rotation and we got everybody able to serve the ball into the court, I thought we were going to be able to really push forward against Stanford, and that's exactly what we did.
Saturday's match included a whole bunch of highlights, to say the least. 22 kills from redshirt senior Andy Sellen, 10 kills out of the middle from David Frazee, and then 9 kills out of the middle from freshman Graydon Schrader. Talk about how we were able to move the ball around and be effective in those senses.
Well, we have a freshman setter, Michael Keegan, who is taking the place of Omar Rivera from Puerto Rico. And Michael's put in a very unique situation because he's got to run this offense as a freshman, which is a very rare commodity in volleyball because you want experience at that particular position, and being a former setter yourself. The good positive about our team offensively is the fact that Andy Sellen, I thought, played very, very well in his first significant action in about a year and a half. The other part that I really like is the fact that Michael Keegan was able to push our middles a lot. And that's something you very, very rarely see in a volleyball match, especially somebody who's so young and inexperienced to run the middle, whether in system or out of system. Obviously, his decision-making has got to get better. His selections in crucial times have got to get better. His effort defensively has got to get better. But I was pleased with where he can potentially go. Andy Sellen's going to be our offensive guy. He's a former All-American here back in 2013.
For sure.
The biggest deficiency when you look at the statistics as you have in front of you is the fact that we did not get left side production out of Alex Halltaller, Nick Smalter, or Tony Price, and that hurt us.
Coming up next, we'll talk with assistant coach J.W. Kieckhefer, as well as later on in the show, we'll revisit with head coach Ryan Rock Perrotte and discuss the future matches coming up this coming weekend on Arnie Ball Court.
My research is from applied electromagnetics and from component level design to system level and then integration of these components. We have a basically well-established laboratory that we are using both for research and teaching. I think one of the great advantages that we have is the small classroom environment, because small classroom environment help us to engage students with one-to-one, and that dialogue helps us to know our students better.
Welcome back to VolleyDons Weekly. I'm your host, Jordan Armstrong. Joining me this week is first-year assistant coach J.W. Kieckhefer. Now, although it's your first year as an assistant coach, it's been quite a consecutive streak you being here on what used to be the Arnie Ball Show, but now is VolleyDons Weekly.
Yeah, I think I've been here for a long time. I don't know how long I've been here for, but if Coach knows over there, I don't know. I think I've been here on every single year, even when I redshirted, I think I was on. So,
Year 6?
I think this is year 7 for me.
Year 7.
I think this is year 7 for me, which is pretty astonishing, thinking I've only been a coach for a year. But yeah, I'm pretty used to coming down here to see ATV and having some fun. Usually it was Coach Franke, but hey, it's good to see you, Jordan. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good
Thank
to see you too. Not
It's
too
good
bad
to
of a
see you.
first time here.
Yeah, he's doing pretty well. I couldn't do as good as you did, so I'm happy you have to get the first shot at it, not me.
Appreciate it. So then let's get talking a little bit. It's your first year as an actual assistant coach. Last year you were the team's graduate assistant.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how those roles kind of differ from each other and the things that you've had to do and take a little bit more responsibility of.
Well, I think of course there's the fact that you're not full time. You're limited. You're limited with your hours. You're limited in what you're getting put on your plate. I was lucky enough to have Coach Ball and Rock, who believed in me as a coach, and they really believed in me and really wanted me to take that next step forward as a coach. So I was able to do a lot of things that necessarily some GAs aren't able to do, especially in the fact that we only have one full-time coach. So there's a lot that was put on my plate, and Rock respected me enough and thought of highly enough of me, I guess, that I could handle it. Apparently I did a good enough job for him to hire me on as a full-time assistant. I mean, I don't know.
Either that or he's completely crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, you never know.
There's
with Rock.
always that. I don't really know, but it was, I thought it was a pretty seamless transition. Being a GA, I was basically working for Rock anyway, doing a lot of the stuff that he needed me to do. Obviously, I did a lot of stuff for Coach, but most of my stuff was based upon helping Coach Rock out with recruiting and scouting reports and stuff. So I was kind of already working more alongside or the right-hand man for Coach Rock, and then when he took the head job, it was nice of him to think highly enough of me to take the assistant coaching job.
So then not only with you now being an assistant coach for the first time, but also there are a few other new members to the VolleyDons staff here on campus.
Yeah, you being one of them. Thanks for coming back. We really appreciate everything you can bring to the staff. I think you learned a lot at Kentucky. I think that we always knew you'd be a great coach, and it's great to have you back while you last, I guess we'll say that, until you can find a full-time job of your own in the women's game. But it's good to have Jordan on as our volunteer assistant. It's great to have Ivan Matos back, being our GA this year, our graduate assistant coach. He's got 1 semester left on his grad school, so we had the ability to help him out, and he adds a lot to our staff, having played pro for the last 2 years, playing at a high level for the last couple of years, and I think playing some of the best volleyball of his life. Watching him play at the PVL Adult Open National Championships last year, some of the greatest volleyball he's been playing of his life. So it's great to have somebody of that caliber on our staff to teach our guys the left side hitting position in a different way than Coach Rock and I can. And then Beth Howard being our last volunteer, coming to us from IUPUI, a stellar libero at IUPUI for how long Coach Rock and I had to watch her in the stands, beat up on IPFW and dig all of our hitters. Now she's with us, and she's been doing a great job so far, I think, getting used to the team, feeling out how to handle guys a little bit differently than women. I think she's doing a great job so far. So, overall, I think we have a great staff, and we've been having a great time so far. And, a tough loss to Stanford. I think we just, have to clear up a little bit things here and there. But overall, it was a good weekend to get some experience for our young guys.
Speaking of young guys, we have 7 new members of the IPFW men's volleyball team this year, 6 of them being freshmen, 1 being a transfer that just came in here in January. Talk a little bit how the freshmen were able to grow and develop during the preseason part that took place during the fall semester here on campus.
Well, I think anytime you bring a new person into campus, they have a lot to develop, just being better at, the certain things that is different at our level of the game. So when you look at this level of the game, there's so much more speed, there's so much more power, than the club level and the high school level. So there's an adjusting period there, and I think that, I think I speak for Coach Rock in this, we were a little bit nervous coming into this weekend to see what we got, because we really haven't seen them play together against a top level team. So it was nice to be able to get to play a team like Stanford the opening weekend, to kind of use it as a measuring stick. But I think even besides our freshmen like Michael Keegan and Graydon Schrader who played, there's also people like Tony Price, who's never really played significant playing time on our team. David Frazee stepping in for really his significant role for the first time this year. So there's some inexperienced guys as well as the youth we have on this roster, and it was good to see them respond. It was good to see Michael Kieckhefer run the middle late in a couple sets into the Stanford match. And while we lost on a middle set, it shows his confidence in setting the middle on a match point. And while we had a one-on-one, it was actually not a great decision, but it was a decent decision. We had a one-on-one, and their setter was standing right there on top of David, and he's a big kid. So, I thought he did a great job at maturing very, very quickly this weekend. And we need to continue to get better because we're not quite there yet to a place where we need to be to compete in this really tough conference this year in the MIVA.
One of the ways that I've always been able to really learn a lot about the game is all of the film sessions that we used to have, something that we've continued to do so far this season. So in your opinion, not only as a coach, but even as a player, put in the perspective of how important going back and watching film is, kind of like what we talked about with the guys yesterday.
Well, Coach Ball always used to say it, there's a couple things that never lie. I think he said, and he might have said 3, but the 2 things I can remember right now, there's 2 things that never lie. It's the mirror and video. Those don't lie. Whatever you did,
very true.
Whatever you see,
very true.
it's a truth. You can't say I didn't do this, but then on the video you did it. I think every athlete needs to take that into consideration, that video never lies to you. You can watch what you did well, you can watch what you did poorly, you can watch what the other team did very, very well and try to emulate that. And we're lucky to have and be in a sport like volleyball where there's really only a couple good ways of doing something. There's only a couple good ways of hitting a volleyball. There's only a couple good ways of technically setting a volleyball. There's only a couple good ways of technically passing a volleyball. So we're in a sport where you can emulate things, where you can emulate that person's passing, that person's arm swing, that person's blocking move. So getting to see a team like Stanford, who's a couple more seniors than we have, a lot more experience in the setting position than we had, gives our guys an opportunity to watch themselves and see what they did well and did poorly, but also to watch the other team and see what they did well. They were in great positions to dig the ball, I thought, all night. And they maybe only got one hand on it, but the ball got up and they put it back over, and it was tough for us to play. So.
Hand or a neck in the case when we had set point in the 4th set.
Yeah, hand, neck, body, arm, foot.
Anything to keep the ball in the air.
That's what they did all week. So that's actually all match. That's what they were doing. And we couldn't find ways to put balls away the more time they put it to our side. So we're going to see that against Ball State too. That's all they do is put the ball back on our side. So we got to get ready for it.
For sure. And lastly, as we kind of start wrapping up here, as my predecessor in this seat would do, always ask whoever the spotlight guest is about their educational endeavors. And in your case, even though you are a full-time assistant coach, you are actually still a graduate student as well. So talk a little bit about the work that you've been doing in the communications department in pursuit of your master's.
Well, yeah, I was only 1 year into my master's program last year. Lucky enough that I got hired by Rock in the full-time spot this year. But I obviously still have yet to finish my master's degree, and being so far into it, there's no reason why I shouldn't continue doing it. So I took a class last semester. I'm going to continue to take one class each semester. I'll be done in the spring of 2017. That'll be my graduation year. So yeah, I love communication. It's something that I didn't necessarily see myself doing when I came to college. I minored in it as I got through. Had a really great professor when I was younger, when I was a junior in college, and she made me really love the topic. And fortunately, she's moved on to a different university, but I love the study of communication, and it's been something that interests me and I think really applies to volleyball and to coaching. Adapting your communication style to people who you coach, and just kind of adapting your communication to your audience. I think that really applies to coaching and just to anything you really do in life.
That's great, and I know that even the balance has been a little bit more difficult now with actually working full-time, because you'd obviously rather coach more than you're doing the schoolwork, but you're still getting through.
Yeah, I mean, I love coaching. I love what I do full-time. I'm thankful to Rock that he believed in me and is giving me the opportunity to do what I love for a living. To get a master's degree is something that only my dad has. My mom doesn't have it, and it's something that that can kind of move you on in life and get you to different areas of just the world, and different opportunities can pop up for you. So it's something that has been really important to me as I've gotten older into college, and I've been or at least attempted to be persuaded to pursue my PhD after I'm done with that master's program. So we'll see what happens
We
there.
won't get too ahead of ourselves yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's this week's Spotlight with assistant coach J.W. Kieckhefer. We'll be coming back in the next segment with head coach Ryan Perrotte to discuss the upcoming matches this weekend for IPFW men's volleyball.
Indiana University, Purdue University, Fort Wayne, a crossroads of creativity, a campus where streams of thought and knowledge converge, creative minds working together, sharing ideas, expanding human knowledge, and shaping the future. We forge partnerships that inspire our community and strengthen our region. Our scholars, students, and researchers create work that resonates around the world. This is today's IPFW. This is the Don Difference.
Students at IPFW have the advantage over a larger university in that we are very engaged with them, we know them. We have relatively small class sizes and we really know our students well. And we know their capabilities, we can challenge them. And I just love the environment and the atmosphere here. I just love interacting with students and I like the intellectual stimulation of teaching and research.
Not a bad way to start our first Spotlight segment of the year on VolleyDons Weekly, huh?
The JW here?
Yeah, that guy.
You know what's so interesting about JW? I think it's very interesting about JW. He reminds me of his father, actually. And he also reminds me of his mother.
That would make sense because those are his parents.
I think JW is right because I think JW, when he talked about, Coach told him there are 3 things that never lie. I thought it was 2, but I think now that the mind is telling me the 3 things that never lie is the mirror, the video camera, and me. So I think that's actually pretty good. JW is going through an unbelievable experience, like I went through an unbelievable experience with Coach Ball, and that is Coach took me under his wing to do all these things, social appearances, fundraising, different things. And the next time JW comes on the show, I want you to talk about the experience that he had. All December we traveled. I took JW to Chicago, had the time of his life in Chicago. I took him out to Los Angeles for a week in LA. Went to his very first hockey game ever with the Anaheim Ducks and Carolina Hurricanes. Had a great time out in Los Angeles. And then I took him to Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha was the site of the women's championships.
And the AVCA Coaches Convention.
And the AVCA Coaches Convention, which was his first convention ever. It was my 7th convention. And it was such an eye-opening experience to see JW interact with peers and get a sense of what his future in the sport is. JW is so much more better at coaching than I can ever have imagined at my age when I was with him. He's going to be a great volleyball coach. He's passionate. He understands the game. He's wonderful. But I just got to make sure that I'm very careful with him when I take him on the road.
Definitely, definitely. So then, looking forward to this week, we have 2 matches coming up Friday and Saturday inside the Gates Center on Arnie Ball Court. Friday's match is against Sacred Heart University from the EIVA. This is a team that spent the first part of their season last week out in California at the UC Santa Barbara tournament, where they went 0-3 but played 3 pretty legitimate teams out of the MPSF.
Yeah, they're a young volleyball team. Last year, I think they started 5 of 7 freshmen, so they're kind of going through a rebuilding program. But with youth, they have a very talented middle, who I think is going to be an all EIVA first teamer this year. They're a very upcoming good volleyball team. I think they're hungry to finally get off the schneid, as you talked about, with the 3 defeats out in Santa Barbara, and that's a very tough tournament to participate in. But I think they're going to be a very, very formidable opponent for us on Friday, and a team that we just cannot take lightly because they're young.
True, especially after last season when we were on the road at Sacred Heart and we ended up defeating them in 5 sets. Do you think that kind of gives that team, since they were so young, a little bit more confidence coming in, knowing that they went 5 sets with us last year?
Absolutely, and we were a veteran group last year. And I think that of all the things that their head coach is talking about, Mike Rumbaugh, is the fact that we went 5 with a veteran team last year. They've got a lot of changes. I'm talking about us, of course. We can go into the Gate Center on Volleyball court and defeat the Mastodons.
That match against Sacred Heart takes place Friday, 7 o'clock in Gate Center on Arnie Ball Court. And then Saturday, a little bit of a different type of a match, still against another ERBA opponent in Harvard, except this time, instead of playing at our traditional time of 7 o'clock, we're going to do like we did when we went to them last year and play a little bit earlier in the day at 4 o'clock.
And the reason why we do that is, number one, poor scheduling on my part. But number two is the fact that it's for travel for Harvard to try and get back, and hopefully the weather will be pretty good for them to get back. If you remember last year, we were up in Harvard, we played the afternoon match, won in 3 tight sets. Every set went to extra points or overtime, as they now call it in volleyball, which is ridiculous, by the way. That's my Bill Walton coming out. And we left just in tide for Harvard because of the fact that that was their first major snowstorm blizzard of the year. So we did that to push, and that's a deep concern of mine, because if we don't play very well and struggle against Sacred Heart on Friday, it's a short turnaround to come around and play 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday. And we do that twice this year. We also do that in February when we play Lewis here on a Friday night and then turn around and play Loyola at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on homecoming Saturday. So Harvard is a very, very good volleyball team. They play very good defense, and they can serve the ball. And those are the two things that concern me so much about Harvard, because they can extend the rally and really deflate you. And if you remember against Stanford, we might have had 8 extended or long rallies, and we've only won 1. And it's a very, very deflating thing when you can't win the long rallies, and Harvard's notorious for that.
True, Harvard coming off of a 1-2 weekend to begin the season out at the Outrigger Classic out in Hawaii, so they've done a fair amount of traveling in the early part of the season. So as they come in here into the Gate Center on Arnie Ball Court, we'll see how they manage all that travel time, as well as their match Friday night coming off of a match against Ball State.
And they went 5 with Lewis. They were up 2-1 and lost in 5 to Lewis. So, and Lewis is obviously the national runner-up a year ago, and they're very good. So we're looking forward to playing at home before we get on the road.
For sure. Well, that's going to wrap up our first week of VolleyDons Weekly here. We'd like to thank our sponsors, IAB, Indiana Physical Therapy, Molten, O&E, and Pizza Hut. I'm your host, Jordan Armstrong, and we look forward to seeing you next week on VolleyDons Weekly.
I am an entomologist, which means I study insects, specifically insects that transmit diseases and pathogens that cause diseases in plants. I mean, it's incredible the amount of great research that's going on here, where students can get involved. So many undergraduate research support and travel opportunities that are here. I feel like, they can really reach for the stars right here in IPFW.